Hello, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World News live from Warsaw. Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski has warned that Russian President Vladimir Putin's plane could be forced to land in Poland if the aircraft transits through Polish airspace en route to Hungary. Putin will be traveling to Budapest to meet with his US counterpart, Donald Trump. Sikorski also added that there is a possibility that an independent Polish court could order the Polish government to escort Putin's plane to The Hague, where the International Criminal Court is located. Putin is wanted on an ICC warrant over the war crime of illegally deporting children from Ukraine. Poland, as a member of the court, is obliged to detain Putin if he enters Polish airspace or steps on Polish soil. Sikorski's warning was not left without a reply from the Kremlin. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said, quote, "Poland is ready to commit acts of terror." It remains to be seen when the Trump-Putin-Budapest meeting will be held or which route the Russian leader's airplane will take to get there. All traces lead to the east, says Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk in regard to the individuals detained on suspicion of planning acts of sabotage in Poland. 8 people have been detained in the past 2 weeks, and preliminary findings suggest that the operation was fueled by Russian funds.
In the last 2 weeks, the Internal Security Agency, that was working with the military counterintelligence service, detained another 8 suspects. There is a reasonable probability of action on Polish territory against critical infrastructure facilities, including military facilities.
All traces, in terms of initiating these potential actions, threats, the traces lead all to the east. And according to this modus operandi, which we have also discussed many times, the Russians often seek out pro-Russian citizens of Ukraine. For example, people who place themselves at the disposal of Russian intelligence. This is the most typical type of recruitment. The Russians count on additional political benefits from this kind of conduct.
In recent months, officers of the Internal Security Agency detained a total of 55 people who acted to the detriment of Poland and acted on behalf of Russian intelligence. All these cases are at the preliminary stage. These are very complicated and multi-threaded investigations. Among those detained, the last one is a 21-year-old Ukrainian. He lived here, not far from Warsaw, and worked in a warehouse. He and his colleagues, 2 other Ukrainians, according to preliminary information, created a kind of trail where they would send explosives through Poland and Romania to Ukraine.
A European plan to implement a new emissions tax is slowly crumbling, Polish Deputy Foreign Minister Ignacy Niemczycki said following Tuesday's EU General Affairs Council meeting in Luxembourg. Polish diplomats have been fighting for a more gradual and postponed introduction of the levy, better known under its acronym ETS2.
This is a gas station, a place loved by every finance minister because half of the price of fuel is taxes. And there's another levy on the horizon, one that will add around 10 euro cents to every litre sold. It's called ETS2, or the European Trading Scheme 2, and Poland has been fighting tooth and nail to postpone it. With some success, according to Polish Deputy Foreign Minister Ignacy Niemczycki.
It's the first sign of change, that our diplomacy is having real impact and that ETS2 is slowly crumbling.
Poland's opposition stems from the fact that ETS2 will, for the first time, cover home heating systems using fossil fuels. This means 50% higher heating costs for those who still use hard coal. The introduction of ETS2 by design goes hand in hand with a financial cushion which is supposed to soften the blow, but this may not be enough. ETS1 has been in force since 2005 and is credited with being the most successful policy tool in the fight against carbon emissions. The European Commission is working on a proposal for the updated implementation of ETS2.
The Polish government plans to save JSW, the biggest European producer of coking coal, a commodity crucial for steelmaking, making it also critical for defense production. JSW has been suffering from low prices of the commodity. But the government argues it needs restructuring.
This is JSW, the biggest producer of coking coal in Europe. But even though it's the biggest, it doesn't mean it's the strongest. And that's why the Polish government wants to lend it a hand already extended to other mining companies.
Given the financial difficulties experienced by coking coal mining companies in Poland, by which I mean JSW, we want to extend the support mechanism to cover it as well. Our goal, however, is not to close the company down, but restructure it, including layoffs.
JSW has been in the red for 6 consecutive quarters, with the company incurring an operating loss of about 0.5 billion euros in the first half of this year. The company blames global conditions for that, with coking coal prices falling by a quarter since 2024. By including the company in the mining sector support scheme, the government is essentially equipping JSW with a cushion made from taxpayer money, a cushion that will soften the blow of staff reductions.
We'll do everything in our power to save this company, or at least a significant portion of it.
But there's another factor: defense. As Poland ramps up defense spending to almost 5% of its GDP, the country wants as much of this money to flow to local companies. And defense means steel, and steel means coking coal.
No one needs convincing as to how important JSW is, not only due to the company's headcount, but also due to the important role it can still play for the Polish economy, Polish industry, and potentially for Polish defense.
Coking coal has been included on the EU's critical materials list.
Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has begun serving his 5-year sentence for criminal conspiracy. He is the first former head of an EU country to serve time in prison and the first French post-war leader to be jailed.
Sarkozy, a right-wing politician who served as French president between 2007 and 2012, was sentenced over a scheme to obtain election funds from the regime of the late Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi. He maintained his innocence in his final social media address to all French citizens before entering the La Santé prison.
I want to tell them with all my unwavering strength that this is not a former president of the Republic who is being locked up this morning, but an innocent man.
But according to experts, jailing convicted politicians is exactly what the French public wants to see.
People would like to have more justice. What we can hear in the media, but also in the public, each time this affair happens, is that we don't want to have impunity. We would like that people who are condemned actually go to jail.
And the conditions he will serve his sentence in are already widely discussed.
Mr. Sarkozy will be jailed in isolation for security reasons, like you reminded. It will be, though, quite a humble setting, approximately 10 meters square.
Sarkozy has already appealed his sentence, and he may not have to wait for the final verdict in prison.
It's still possible, considering the age of Mr. Sarkozy, that in 2 months the judge pronounced an exit of the prison while waiting for the definitive trial for the appeal.
His lawyers remain hopeful.
We are confident because the reasons for his imprisonment are quite simply illegal. Now a hearing must be scheduled, probably not for another 3 weeks or a month. Then the Court of Appeal will render its decision, and we hope that it will take note and draw conclusions from our request, and that he will be released very quickly.
Crowds of supporters gathered as Sarkozy left his residence to be transported to the prison.
It's quite normal for right-wing voters who feel a little orphaned to say to themselves, the last champion who won for us is here, and we're putting him in prison. Beyond the case or the legal aspects, there is an emotional and sentimental side to it.
A recent poll carried out by French canvasser El Abbé says that 6 out of 10 people in France believe Sarkozy's prison sentence to be fair.
And that's all the news for now. News in depth on Chopin piano competition with Alex Cadier and Carolina Chaplin is coming up next.